Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my miscarriage story. So just a trigger warning, if you don't like talking about loss, this is not the video for you. I do go into detail about my experience. It's a bit of a TMI, one would say. So if you don't want to watch that, please click out of the video now. For those that do, my name is Laura and I have one son whose name is Roman, and he passed away when he was 3 months old towards the beginning of the year in May. And I have since had a second pregnancy that I have recently miscarried, and I'm going to be talking about that experience today. So we started trying for our second child towards the end of August, which was a few months after Roman had passed away. My partner was ready to start trying pretty early on after the loss of Roman. Obviously, everyone grieves differently, and it has been a whole process, and just because he was ready to try again, it doesn't mean that he loves Roman any less or is struggling with the loss any less. It's such a personal thing when it comes to trying again after loss, so I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there. I was not ready when he was, but we came to kind of, I guess, a mutual agreement that August would be when we would start trying. So we did start trying in August, and I fell pregnant straight away on our first month trying, which I was so grateful and happy for, because after everything we had been through this year, I was not ready to go on a really difficult trying to conceive journey and have months of heartbreak. So I just felt so grateful that it happened so easily for us. I had been on prenatals for months before. I had done a lot of work trying to regulate my hormones after not only giving birth and breastfeeding and all of that, but actually the trauma of the loss. It can really affect you on kind of a chemical level, which is a whole nother topic. But I felt in myself that my body was at a point where I was ready and everything like that. So I was super grateful to find out I was pregnant. I actually found out I was pregnant really early as well. I started testing pretty much like the day that you could test at the absolute earliest. And I got a faint line. I would have been about 3 weeks pregnant. Normally, if you don't know much about trying to conceive, a lot of people find out after they've missed a period. It's hard to kind of get a positive test before that, because your HCG levels need to be high enough to be detected on a test. But I tested really early and got my faint line when I was about 3 weeks pregnant. My plan was to tell Perry on Father's Day, because Father's Day was about a week and a half away, and I just thought that would be really special to tell him then. So I held in the news. I was the only one that knew for about a week and a half, and that was difficult, but worth it. So I told him on Father's Day, and I did upload that video of telling him I was pregnant, and I did put in the description that it wasn't a new pregnancy, that it was the one that I'd miscarried, because I have spoke about this miscarriage on my other social media platforms. So I did put that in the description, but a lot of people still seem confused as to why I uploaded that video and how I've said it's not a new pregnancy and blah, 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 blah. So I just want to say that, yes, I uploaded that video and I had filmed it before I started miscarrying, obviously, and I feel like I just have that right to put it up there. I was pregnant. I can celebrate that moment, and yeah, so I decided to still upload it just to kind of show people that stuff like this happens. People do tell their partners they're pregnant and everyone's really excited, and then you lose that excitement and that hope. So that's what happened for us. So yes, I uploaded that video, which you might have seen, of me telling him. So he found out on Father's Day, and we were really, really excited, really happy. Finally, it kind of felt like, you know, the worst of our heartbreak and everything was behind us, and we were kind of moving on to a happier time, I guess. so yeah, he knew, and we'd lived probably about a week and a half or so. These timelines get a little bit confusing, but a week and a half of happiness and hope. And then one morning, Perry, my partner, had left for work, and I had woken up and went to the bathroom, and when I wiped, there was a little bit of blood on the paper. So at that point, I was like, okay, like there's a little bit of spotting there. But I didn't automatically think, okay, this is a miscarriage, because it's actually quite common to spot a little bit in early pregnancy, and it doesn't always mean that the pregnancy is not viable. So I just kind of tried to stay on the optimistic side, and I knew that. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, sorry. I just let him know, like, look, there's been a little bit of blood, and he was like, do you want me to come home? And I was like, no, it's okay. I'm just gonna put a pad on and monitor it. But shortly after that phone call, it was almost as if I'd had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I recalled in my pregnancy with Roman that the doctor had said if I ever have any bleeding, I need to go straight to the hospital because I have Rh negative blood, which means I require injections during pregnancy. So for those that don't know what that means, I'm not going to go into a whole physiology lesson right now. You can Google it if you're interested. So yes, we had to go to the emergency department. Now I will just say that this emergency department near me is where Roman had a very traumatic resuscitation in. He ended up requiring CPR. His heart stopped. It was incredibly stressful. We thought he wouldn't make it at that point, and I just have a lot of kind of triggers and trauma associated with that department. But the safest thing for me to do was to go to the hospital and get this injection. So I knew that I just had to do it. So I called Perry and reminded him that I had to go to the hospital, and he came home and took me in. So the first thing they did in there was some blood tests which check for my HCG levels. And I'd had these done with the doctor a couple of days prior, but I hadn't actually got the results of them yet. So when they did them at the hospital, my levels came back at 39. Now 39 is actually still considered normal for where I was in my pregnancy. However, I knew when I heard that this pregnancy would very unlikely be viable, because in order to get a positive pregnancy test, your levels need to be around 25. And I'd got my positive a couple of weeks prior. So if my levels had only gone from 25 at a minimum to 39, like, yeah, it's not going to be likely that everything would be okay, because your HCG levels usually double every 24 hours on average. So yeah, I knew that, and then they compared them to the ones I'd had at the doctor a couple of days prior, and they hadn't really gone up much at all. So at that point, I was pretty, I would say 100% certain that I was losing the pregnancy. At that point, I hadn't bled much more, so I wasn't really like passing any clots or anything like that that would be like, yeah, okay, this is 100%, you know, you've lost the pregnancy. But I had a lot of kind of period pain, like extreme period pain is how I would describe it. Normally my periods are not too bad, but this was very painful, almost like small contractions. After a while, I did start to bleed heavier. We were still at the hospital at this point, and at that point there was no doubt in my mind that that is what I was going through. So the doctors wanted to do a few extra tests. They wanted to do some ultrasounds to make sure that the pregnancy wasn't actually in my tubes, called an ectopic pregnancy, and they also wanted to do like a pelvic exam and things. I knew in my gut that it wasn't an ectopic pregnancy. I was in too much pain in like my lower pelvis, and I was bleeding too much and contracting too much that it would, yeah, I just knew. It's hard to explain. I obviously have medical knowledge being a nurse, but also in my body, I just knew that it wasn't in my tube. And also they wanted to do a pelvic exam, which was relatively unnecessary. I trusted my body to pass what it needed to pass and all of that. So we at that point decided to discharge against medical advice, which is not something I would recommend being a nurse. However, for my mental health, that was the priority at that point. I needed to protect my mental health after everything we've been through this year, and then this on top of it. I just knew that it was the best thing for me to not stay in that area where I had a lot of negative emotions attached to, and just kind of come home and rest. I knew that my partner was going to be home with me and that I would be safe at home, and I also knew that if anything got worse, I could come back. So we made that call to go home. For the rest of the day, I pretty much just slept all afternoon. It was really mentally and physically exhausting. Obviously, your body is going through a lot when you are miscarrying, and you need to be gentle with yourself and get plenty of rest. I was bleeding incredibly heavy for the rest of the day, the heaviest bleeding I've ever experienced. I would, like I said, feel kind of like a small contraction, and then I would pass quite a bit of blood. And yeah, it's very uncomfortable. I had to take painkillers. I never have to take painkillers for much. So yeah, very unfortunate that, mentally you're going through a miscarriage, and that is obviously hard and challenging, but then physically it also is really hard. And I think that's something that can be missed. Like, yes, the thought of having a miscarriage and losing the baby and losing all of that hope that you had is mentally really, really hard. And I feel like a lot of people just think of that, but really it's actually physically really painful for your body to go through as well. And it affects your hormones. My hormones were going all over the place because obviously my body had produced a lot of progesterone and a lot of HCG to support this pregnancy. And then that was coming down really, really fast. And I wasn't okay for like 2 weeks. Even though I'd stopped bleeding, my hormones were completely out of whack. So that's a whole nother side of it that I think we don't talk about enough. So I probably bled for about 5 days. And then, like I said, it took me about 2 weeks to fully kind of feel back to myself and feel like everything had evened out again. I did get a follow-up blood test with my doctor to confirm my HCG levels were back to baseline, because sometimes you can have something called retained products, which is when your body retains some of the tissue of the pregnancy and you can get an infection and end up needing a surgery. And I was grateful that my body kind of did everything it needed to do, and I didn't need any medication or any like kind of medical intervention to have a complete miscarriage. So basically that was what happened, what went down. In terms of how I'm coping with it mentally, I think I haven't really felt any grief in particular for like that baby and that pregnancy, like as if I've lost a child. I feel like maybe that's because of what I went through with Roman. I associate a lot more kind of like grief around child loss with him. However, this has been challenging in the sense that I feel like I'm really far away from what I really want, which is bringing a healthy baby into this world. I'm upset that we're not pregnant still, and that it's just, going to be longer until I get that. And also it really exacerbated my grief for Roman. So I had a lot of hard days after that miscarriage, probably some of the worst that I've had this whole time with my grief. And I feel like that was because it just really, put a big emphasis on I had lost him and now I'd experienced this miscarriage, and it kind of felt like I was never going to get to where I wanted to go, which is a big family. So now it has been over a month. It's been, nearly 2 months, I feel, since then. And I'm feeling a lot more optimistic, a lot kind of better. I feel like my body and my hormones are kind of more regulated now. And I'm going to keep trying, and we'll see what the next few months brings. I just wanted to say that if you have experienced a loss or child loss, miscarriage, pregnancy loss, whatever, at whatever stage, I'm so sorry. It's so unfair that things like this happen. No one deserves to go through this experience, and I hope that you have the support around you that you need. Just be gentle on yourself, and don't be afraid to reach out to me if you want to talk to someone that has been through it. 1 in 4 people experience miscarriage. It is way more common than you think, and that is why I am talking about it. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope you'll have a good day.